Have you ever noticed how people spend their lives blaming others, circumstances, luck, even fate, while their own habits quietly destroy them? They wait for tomorrow, promise to change one day, and convince themselves that comfort is enough. But what if I told you the brutal truth? That your life only changes when you do, and until you face yourself with discipline, nothing will ever shift. It's like a man sharpening his sword every day, but never stepping onto the battlefield. The blade gleams, but it never cuts. Or think of a traveler in the desert, parched and exhausted, yet he keeps chasing mirages instead of digging where he stands. That's what most people do with their lives. Chase illusions of comfort while wasting the only treasure they have, time. Because while the world wastes time chasing pleasure and distraction, you have a choice. Remain as you are, or rebuild yourself, rule by rule, habit by habit. And when you choose discipline, when you choose mastery, the life you once envied in others becomes the life you live yourself. So how do you cut through excuses, weakness, and fear, without illusions, without delay, without wasting another day? Stay until the end, because these 8 brutal Stoic rules will not just challenge you, they will transform you. Let's get started. Number 1. Stop making excuses. Let's talk about one of the most brutal truths of life. Excuses keep you trapped. They sound harmless, even reasonable. I'll start when I have more time. It's not my fault. They held me back. Or, I'll try tomorrow. But here's the reality. Every excuse you make builds another wall around your potential. And the more walls you build, the harder it becomes to escape the prison you've created for yourself. Here's the truth. Life only changes when you own your failures completely. Excuses are like shields we use to protect our ego, but that protection comes at a cost. It keeps us stuck. Every time you justify why you didn't do something, you're telling yourself a story that makes inaction acceptable. And over time, those stories become your identity. You start to believe, this is just who I am. But Stoicism cuts through this with a brutal rule: no excuses, ever. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca once said, "No man was ever wise by chance." Think about that. Wisdom, growth, and strength don't just happen by accident. They happen through deliberate action, through responsibility, through ownership. If you make excuses, you're handing over control of your life to chance, to circumstances, to other people. But when you stop making excuses, when you take full responsibility for both your failures and your progress, you step into power. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him David, spent years talking about how he wanted to start his own business. He had the ideas, the passion, and the skills. But every time I asked him what was holding him back, he had a new excuse. The economy isn't great right now, or I don't have the right connections, or maybe next year when things settle down. And guess what? Year after year, nothing changed. One day, after yet another setback at his job, David finally realized something. The only thing standing in his way was himself. It wasn't the economy, it wasn't his boss, it wasn't the timing, it was the endless stream of excuses he kept feeding himself. That realization hit hard, but it was the turning point. He stopped making excuses, took small but consistent action, and within a year he had built the business he had been waiting to start for a decade. So how do you stop making excuses? First, catch yourself in the act. Every time you say, "I can't because," pause and ask, is this a real obstacle or just a story I'm telling myself? More often than not, it's the latter. Second, replace excuses with ownership. Instead of saying, "I don't have time," say, "I didn't prioritize it." That small shift forces you to face the truth. Third, take immediate action. Excuses lose their power the moment you do something, even something small, that moves you forward. At the end of the day, excuses are lies you tell yourself to stay comfortable, but comfort won't fix your mind, and it won't fix your life. The brutal Stoic rule is this: stop making excuses. Own your failures, own your choices, own your life. Because the moment you stop justifying why you can't, you finally open the door to discovering how you can. Number 2, master your emotions. Let's talk about one of the most brutal but necessary rules for fixing yourself: mastering your emotions. Anger, fear, envy, jealousy. These feelings can hijack your mind faster than any external enemy. They cloud judgment, poison relationships, and push you into actions you'll regret for years. The Stoics understood that these destructive emotions ruin more lives than poverty or bad luck ever could. Because no matter how much talent or opportunity you have, if you can't control your emotions will control you. Here's the truth: emotions themselves are not the enemy. It's your lack of mastery over them. Anger can be useful if it drives you to fix injustice. Fear can sharpen your focus in moments of danger. Even envy can point to what you secretly desire. But when you let these emotions run wild, they become chains. Anger becomes rage that destroys relationships. Fear becomes paralysis that keeps you from chasing your goals. Envy becomes bitterness that poisons your happiness. Left unchecked, emotions don't just hurt you, they dominate you. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom doesn't come from wealth, power, or status. It comes from the ability to stay calm when life tests you, to hold steady when the storm hits, to choose reason over reaction. Mastery of your emotions is mastery of your life. Without it, you're a puppet pulled by strings you don't control. With it, you become unshakable, no matter what chaos surrounds you. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Daniel, was brilliant at his job, but had a terrible temper. Whenever something went wrong at work, he'd explode, yelling at co-workers, sending harsh emails, slamming doors. At first, people tolerated it because he was talented, but over time, his reputation suffered. Clients didn't want to work with him. His team grew resentful, and eventually he was passed over for promotions, not because he lacked skill, but because he lacked emotional control. One day, after a particularly ugly outburst, Daniel's boss pulled him aside and said something that cut deep. "You're the smartest person in the room, but until you learn to control yourself, you'll never truly lead." That moment stung, but it was his wake-up call. Daniel began practicing self-discipline, journaling his emotions before reacting, and learning to pause before speaking. Over time, he transformed, not just as a leader, but as a man who was no longer enslaved by his temper. So, how do you master your emotions? First, practice the pause. When you feel anger or fear rise, don't react immediately. Take a breath. Create space between the emotion and your action. Second, reframe the story. The Stoics taught that it's not events themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we attach to them. Ask yourself, is this really worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. Third, redirect your energy. Instead of letting emotions spiral, Channel them into something constructive. Exercise, writing, problem solving. At the end of the day, emotions are powerful servants, but terrible masters. If you don't control them, they'll control you, and they'll wreck your life in the process. But if you choose mastery, if you decide to govern yourself with calmness and clarity, you unlock true freedom. The brutal Stoic rule is this: master your emotions or be mastered by them. Number 3. Accept harsh reality. Let's talk about a truth that many people spend their whole lives trying to avoid. Life is not supposed to be easy. We often waste so much energy wishing that things were simpler, wishing that circumstances were different, wishing that people would act the way we want. But Stoicism teaches a harsh and liberating rule. Stop wishing life was easier, accept it as it is, and then act with strength. Here's the truth: life doesn't bend to our desires. No amount of complaining, self-pity, or wishful thinking will change the reality of hardship. Pain, betrayal, failure, disappointment, these are not accidents, they are constants. And the more you resist them, the heavier they feel. But when you accept reality as it is, when you stop demanding that life conform to your expectations, something shifts. You gain clarity. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean giving up. It means seeing things for what they are, without illusions, and then acting from a place of strength instead of denial. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epictetus said, "Don't demand things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do." That isn't about surrendering, it's about aligning yourself with reality. Imagine you're caught in a storm. You can curse the wind, scream at the rain, and wish the skies were clear. Or you can accept the storm, adjust your sails, and navigate through it. One path leaves you frustrated and broken. The other path makes you stronger. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Emily, lost her job unexpectedly after 10 years with the same company. At first, she was furious. She kept repeating, "This isn't fair. I gave them everything." For months, she resisted reality, replaying the betrayal in her mind and wishing things were different. But all that did was keep her stuck. One day, while reading a book on Stoicism, she came across Epictetus's line, "Don't demand things happen as you wish." It struck her. She realized she had been wasting all her energy demanding a world that didn't exist anymore. That day, she made a choice. She stopped fighting reality. She accepted the loss, reframed it as an opportunity, and started her own consulting business. What once felt like the end of the world became the doorway to a better life. And it only happened when she accepted reality instead of resenting it. So how do you practice this brutal rule? First, notice where you resist reality. Ask yourself, what am I constantly wishing was different? Is it your past, someone's behavior, a circumstance outside your control? Second, separate what's in your control from what isn't. The Stoics remind us that you can't control the storm, but you can control your response. Third, act with strength. Once you accept reality, you can focus all your energy on what you can change, and that's where transformation happens. At the end of the day, acceptance is not weakness, it's power. When you stop wishing life was easier and start facing it as it is, you stop wasting energy on illusions and start using it to build resilience. The brutal Stoic rule is this: don't fight reality. Accept it, adapt to it, and act with strength. Because the sooner you embrace life as it truly is, the sooner you unlock the strength to change yourself. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a thank God and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 4. Cut out weak relationships. Let's talk about one of the hardest but most necessary rules for fixing yourself: cutting out weak and toxic relationships. You can work on your discipline, master your emotions, and accept harsh realities. But if you surround yourself with people who disrespect you, drain you, or hold you back, all your progress will be undone. The truth is simple. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Here's the truth. Toxic people drain your power. They don't encourage you to grow. They belittle your ambitions. They don't celebrate your victories. They downplay them or twist them into competition. They don't respect your boundaries. They cross them again and again, then make you feel guilty for noticing. And if you let them stay in your life, they will quietly sabotage your self-worth until you don't even realize how much lighter you'd feel without them. The brutal Stoic rule is this: if they don't respect you, they don't deserve you. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." That's not just advice, it's a warning. The people you spend time with will shape your mindset, your habits, and your future. If you walk with the bitter, you'll learn bitterness. If you walk with the lazy, you'll learn laziness. But if you walk with the disciplined, the wise, and the strong, you will rise with them. Stoicism teaches us to treat our associations as carefully as we treat our thoughts, because both can poison us if we're not careful. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Jessica, had a group of friends she had known since high school. They were fun, but over the years she noticed something. They didn't want her to grow. Whenever Jessica talked about starting her own business, they'd mock her. "You? Really? You're not cut out for that." Whenever she made progress, they'd downplay it or twist it into a joke. At first, she brushed it off, thinking they were just teasing. But deep down, it weighed on her. She found herself doubting her own abilities because of their constant negativity. One day, she realized something important. These weren't friends, they were anchors. So she made the painful choice to distance herself. It wasn't easy. She felt lonely at first. But soon, she found herself surrounded by people who encouraged her, who respected her vision, who pushed her to grow. And her life changed drastically, not because she suddenly became more talented, but because she finally cut out the ones who were draining her. So how do you apply this rule? First, pay attention to patterns. How do you feel after spending time with someone, lighter or heavier, encouraged or diminished? That feeling tells you everything. Second, set boundaries. If someone constantly disrespects you, stop excusing it. Boundaries show others what you will and will not tolerate. Third, make the cut when necessary. Some people don't just need boundaries, they need removal. And yes, it's hard, but keeping them is harder because they'll cost you your peace, your progress, and your potential. At the end of the day, the people in your circle can either build your strength or break it. Stoicism demands that you choose wisely. If they don't respect you, they don't deserve you. The brutal Stoic rule is this: cut out weak relationships, because your life cannot rise if your circle is pulling you down. Number 5. Do what you fear. Let's talk about one of the most brutal rules for fixing yourself. Do what you fear. Fear has a strange way of disguising itself. It shows up as procrastination, endless planning, excuses, or waiting for the right time. But underneath it all is the same truth. You're afraid. afraid of failure, afraid of rejection, afraid of embarrassment. And the longer you let fear sit in the driver's seat, the smaller your life becomes. Here's the truth. Cowardice is cured only through action. You don't get rid of fear by thinking about it or by wishing it away. You cure fear by walking straight into it. Every step you take against fear makes you stronger. Every time you act, despite shaking hands and racing thoughts, you carve courage into your soul. Fear shrinks when you face it, and it grows when you run from it. That's why the Stoics believed courage was not just a virtue, it was a necessity. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca said, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a living man." What he meant was simple. If you let fear rule you, you'll never live fully. Fear of death, fear of failure, fear of loss. These keep people trapped in small lives. But the moment you accept that fear is part of life and act anyway, you step into true freedom. Courage doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means you choose to act in spite of it. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Ryan, always dreamed of becoming a public speaker. He had ideas that could inspire people, but there was one problem. He was terrified of speaking in front of a crowd. His fear made him avoid opportunities, decline invitations, and hide behind excuses. For years he told himself, "I'm just not ready." But deep down he knew the truth. He was scared. Finally, one day a mentor told him, "Ryan, the only way to kill this fear is to get on stage." So Ryan did something brutal. He signed up for a small local event. His voice shook, his palms sweated, and he stumbled over words. But he finished. And the moment he walked off that stage, something shifted. The fear didn't vanish, but he realized it no longer controlled him. From that day, every time he spoke, the fear shrank a little more. Now, years later, Ryan speaks confidently to hundreds of people. Not because fear left him, but because he learned to walk through it. So how do you practice this rule? First, identify what you're avoiding. What task or dream makes you nervous every time you think about it? That's the fear you must face. Second, start small. Don't wait for the perfect big moment. Take a small step today. Make the call, send the email, have the conversation, try the thing. Third, build consistency. Courage is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. At the end of the day, fear will always exist. But you get to decide if it controls you or strengthens you. The brutal Stoic rule is this: do what you fear, because each step against fear is a step toward freedom. The more you face what terrifies you, the more unshakable your soul becomes. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 6. Respect your time like gold. Let's talk about one of the most brutal lessons the Stoics drilled into their lives. Your time is your most precious possession. You can lose money and make it back. You can lose possessions and replace them. But once an hour is gone, once a day is wasted, you will never get it back. Every wasted moment is like cutting pieces off your life. And yet most people treat their time like it's worthless, handing it away to distractions, toxic people, or meaningless tasks. The Stoics would call this not just foolish, but tragic. Here's the truth. Every wasted hour is a cut from your life. Think about how easily we trade time away, scrolling endlessly through our phones, saying yes to obligations we don't care about, sitting in conversations that drain us. All the while we tell ourselves, it's just a few minutes. But minutes become hours, hours become days, and days become years. And then one day, you look back and realize the greatest theft of your life wasn't from others, it was from yourself. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not waste the little time you have left in distraction." He wasn't exaggerating. Life is short, time is fragile, and distraction is the silent thief that robs you while you're smiling. The Stoics understood that to live fully, you must treat your time like gold, guard it, protect it, and spend it only on what matters. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Mark, was the type who said yes to everything. Dinner invites he didn't want, meetings that didn't need him, favors that drained his energy. He was constantly busy, but rarely fulfilled. One day, after canceling an important workout to attend yet another pointless meeting, his mentor said something that shook him. "Mark, every time you say yes to something unimportant, you say no to something that could change your life." That hit hard. Mark realized he had been throwing away his most valuable asset, time. From then on, he started guarding his hours like treasure. He said no more often. He prioritized his goals, and within a year, his health, business, and relationships transformed. Not because he worked harder, but because he stopped wasting time on things that didn't matter. So, how do you respect your time like gold? First, audit your day. Track where your hours actually go. You'll be shocked at how much disappears into distractions. Second, set boundaries. Say no to people and commitments that don't align with your values. Your time isn't free. It's priceless. Third, invest wisely. Spend your hours on things that build you, learning, creating, strengthening your body, deepening relationships that matter. At the end of the day, time is life. To waste it is to waste yourself. The brutal Stoic rule is this: respect your time like gold, protect it fiercely, because once it's gone forever. The world will try to steal your hours through distraction, noise, and meaningless obligations, but you must guard them with your life, because in the end, your time is your life. Number 7. Embrace discomfort daily. Let's talk about one of the hardest but most transformative rules: embracing discomfort every single day. Modern life sells us the lie that happiness comes from comfort, soft beds, easy routines, endless entertainment. But here's the brutal truth: comfort creates weakness, hardship creates resilience. If you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. If you run from struggle, you run from strength. The Stoics knew that comfort makes you soft, but struggle hardens you into someone unshakable. Here's the truth: strength is born in struggle. Think of your body. Muscles only grow when they're broken down and rebuilt. The same is true for your mind and your character. Every challenge, every obstacle, every hardship is an opportunity to get stronger. But if you choose the easy path every time, you rob yourself of that growth. The more you shield yourself from difficulty, the less prepared you are when life throws real hardship your way. That's why the Stoics deliberately practiced discomfort, not because they loved suffering, but because they loved strength. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epictetus said, "The greater the difficulty, the more glory in overcoming it." Difficulty is not a curse, it's a gift. Every hard thing you conquer adds another layer of strength, resilience, and confidence. When you avoid difficulty, you stay weak. When you embrace it, you rise. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Anthony, used to avoid discomfort at all costs. He avoided conflict, avoided challenges, avoided anything that felt too hard. His motto was basically, why suffer if you don't have to? But when his company downsized, Anthony suddenly found himself in a real struggle. He had to rebuild his career from scratch. And because he had spent his whole life avoiding discomfort, he was unprepared. At first he panicked, but then he made a decision. Instead of running from difficulty, he would start running toward it. He began with small steps, taking cold showers, pushing himself in the gym, volunteering for hard projects at work. Over time, something shifted. He became tougher, calmer, more resilient. A year later, Anthony told me, "The discomfort I once avoided became the thing that saved me." So how do you practice this rule? First, choose voluntary discomfort. Start your day with something that challenges you. Exercise, a cold shower, fasting, or tackling your hardest task first. Second, stop avoiding challenges. When something feels uncomfortable, see it as training, not punishment. Third, build a habit of leaning in. The Stoics believed that hardship was the forge of character. Every time you face discomfort, you're building armor for the soul. At the end of the day, life will give you discomfort whether you want it or not. The question is, will you avoid it until it crushes you, or embrace it until it strengthens you? The brutal Stoic rule is this: embrace discomfort daily. Because every struggle you choose today makes you unbreakable tomorrow. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply. Number 8. Remember death every morning. Let's talk about the most brutal Stoic rule of all. Memento mori. Remember death. It sounds dark, even morbid, but it is not. It is the ultimate reminder of how to live. Every morning when you wake up, you are one step closer to the end of your time. And instead of denying this truth, the Stoics embraced it. They knew that life is short, fragile, and unpredictable, and that by remembering death, you stop wasting time and start truly living. Here's the truth: mortality is the greatest motivator. Most people live as if they have forever. They procrastinate their dreams, delay hard conversations, and assume there will always be more time. But there won't. One day, without warning, the clock will stop. And if you've lived carelessly, wasting your days in distraction and regret, you'll feel the weight of that loss. But if you remember every morning that death could come today, you'll live differently. You'll speak honestly, act bravely, and focus on what truly matters. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius said, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. He wasn't being dramatic, he was being practical. Knowing that life can end at any moment forces clarity. Suddenly, petty arguments don't matter. Wasting time on distractions feels foolish. Putting off your goals becomes impossible. Remembering death sharpens your focus on life. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Chris, was the type who always said, one day I'll travel. One day I'll write the book. One day I'll spend more time with my family. But one day never came. Then, suddenly, Chris lost a close friend in a car accident. It was unexpected, brutal, and final. That loss woke him up. For the first time, he realized how fragile life really was. From that day on, Chris changed his mornings. Instead of scrolling his phone, he'd start each day by asking himself, if today was my last, how would I live it? That question reshaped everything. He stopped procrastinating, started his book, reconnected with family, and began living with urgency. Not recklessness, but urgency. The awareness of death gave him the courage to truly live. So how do you practice memento mori? First, begin each day with reflection. Remind yourself that today is not guaranteed. Say to yourself, if this were my last sunrise, what would I want to accomplish? Second, cut the meaningless. Stop wasting time on arguments, gossip, and distractions. They won't matter when the end comes. Third, live with courage. If there's something you've been afraid to do, say it, try it, attempt it, do it today. Because one day, there will be no tomorrow. At the end of the day, death is not an enemy, it's a teacher. Remembering it each morning doesn't darken life, it brightens it. It reminds you that time is short and that your choices matter now. The brutal Stoic rule is this: remember death every morning. Because when you carry mortality in your mind, you stop wasting time, and finally, you start living. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a thank God and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support.